Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have with me a very special guest, a poetess and an educator who goes by the name of Kirsty Taylor. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. I'm good actually. I've had a nice morning so far. I woke up, had some coffee, did a little bit of reading. Yeah, it's been a really pleasant, peaceful morning. So yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How about you?
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. I want to thank you so much for appearing on my podcast that you accepted to appear. Um, we're trying to talk about a little bit about mental health and
Mm-hmm.
poetry,
Mm-hmm.
which goes together quite nicely, I think. It is
Yeah.
befitting, shall we say, to put those two things together because the line is very blurred between
Mm-hmm.
mental health and psychotic breakdowns and poetry
Yeah.
because no, those worlds are uh, collaborate and they are intersecting in a lot of different points. But
Mm-hmm.
can you introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll start the conversation and the subject?
Sure. So I'm Kirsty Taylor, like you said, and been writing poetry for about 3 years now. A lot of my poetry does actually center around mental health a little bit, and just like it's a way that I deal with my own mental health and my own thoughts. And yeah, I have a poetry account called Observe, Absorb, Write. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And
Yeah.
I have my first poetry collection coming out in September called Turbulent 20s. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's a great name because you have to have some kind of memorable name, some kind of hook that is going
Yeah.
to hook and sink, that people will be drawn to. But I have a lot of critique about names and especially like clickbaits and stuff like this,
hmm
that people are trying to lure in the crowd that they want, uh,
hmm
on on the expense, on the back of the poetry, of the artifice, shall we say.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit about your experience or your titular years, shall we say?
Yeah, sure. Like, am I what my 20s so far? Is that what you mean? Just to clarify.
Just just some events that are meaningful to you,
Okay.
that were impactful
hmm
to you, and that start you on this course of writing poetry, of being an
Sure.
editor.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Got you. Sure. Probably one of the biggest events that happened in my life that I've written about a lot was a period of grief, which is something I'm probably still going through. My great aunt passed away actually
Mhm.
in 2019, so not long after I started writing, actually, and has been kind of a massive source, I suppose, in a way of inspiration, which is probably not the right word, but we were very close. I mean, people probably don't always expect that because it's a great aunt, which is on the family tree,
Yeah.
doesn't always make sense. But my mom's side of the family is very small. She's an only child. Her parents, one of them passed away before I was born, and the other one passed away when I was 8. So she was kind of like my grandmother figure, I suppose, in a way, like my maternal figure other than my mum on that side of my family. And we just clicked. We had a very strong connection and we were very close. And as was that I mean, as is all of my family, but we were particularly close with her as a household because she doesn't have any children of her own or anything. So she would spend Christmas with us and birthdays with us and go on holiday with us. So we had a really close bond. And I think her death was probably the first time I fully experienced grief in a way that I could process it. Because obviously I lost my granddad when I was 8, but I wasn't really old enough to fully understand. I did lose a couple of friends in my teen years, but as much as that grief hit me. They weren't necessarily like direct links, and they were kind of more past friends, but that was still difficult. But this one hit me particularly hard and was something I really struggled to kind of I don't know, I suppose just process
Yeah.
altogether. She had a few different health issues before she passed away in various different years. So she definitely was a fighter in a lot of ways. And that was a massive thing that impacted me. And it has impacted a lot of my writing. I guess other things are probably just like being in this world right now that we live in. I mean, I think
Yeah. So the internet connection is lost, and we'll just wait patiently until Kirsty gets on.
that huh, is it
Yeah.
back?
Yes. Now it's back. Yeah.
Okay. I don't
So
know why my internet is being weird. Yeah, I would say that going through your 20s, I mean, I think that this experience has been difficult no matter what age you are, but this is very much like an age where you should be socializing and there's a lot you should be doing. And
yeah.
that's definitely had like a profound impact in some ways on me of like, well, I'm supposed to be socializing and doing all these things, but I can't even leave my house. I think it's impacted everyone in a lot of ways. And the other thing I would say that's had a massive impact on my generation, we were the first generation to experience, I suppose, the social media age, but we experienced it in our teens for the first time, and nobody had experienced it before us at that young of an age. Because if you were younger than your teens, you weren't really on it. And if you were older, you were an adult. And I think it did impact people who were in their 20s and stuff, but I think it had a massive impact on the mental health of my generation because all of a sudden we were experiencing our teen years, which are very difficult years, I think anyone can attest for, to try and figure out who you are, something you don't necessarily ever fully work out. But instead of doing it just in front of your own high school, you were doing it in front of the whole world. There was no real research done into the world of the internet and the world of social media and the dangers involved in the internet and the dangers involved in social media and how social media can impact you so negatively. And it can be a positive tool as well. I want to add, like, it's not all negative, but I think we were going in and there was no kind of restraints on it necessarily from our parents because they didn't know that it was a bad thing. Like nobody really knew what we were getting ourselves into. So I think that that has had a very profound impact where you
Mhm.
kind of become almost too self-aware a lot of the time in our teen years, and it's been something I've had to like kind of undo over the years. And the addiction to social media has probably become like is definitely a thing that exists in our
Yeah.
generation a lot more than others. Just because I think it's a world that nobody knew anything about, and it was new and exciting. And then all of a sudden, all these things were happening that shouldn't have been happening, but nobody knew what this world would give. So those are probably my main things that have
Mm.
had a profound impact on me. I'm sure there's more, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah. That's a great introduction to our discussion. And
Amazing.
I think, yeah, I hope so. So uh, we have to talk about a lot of topics. It
Hmm.
seems like, but we can start at technology. Let's say
Yeah, sure.
the the cheaping axe,
Hmm.
the tree chopping axe or whatever, is a tool as much as the internet is a tool of humanity, of human
Hmm.
beings. Um, Nobody will attest differently, but the scale is a lot larger, shall we say. Um,
Hmm.
from the time that the man has found, I don't know, and the inspiration to explore the world and to understand the natural world, he developed different kinds of tools for different kinds of tasks and
Yeah.
goals. But today it seems it has been flipped. Now the goal becomes the tool. The goal is the internet, but no, it's actually the tool. If you're talking about like monetary gain or
Hmm.
professional advancement in your career, in through via the internet, then you're
Yeah.
talking about a tool. But now it seems that the internet is a goal because the real world is being abandoned left and right.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
now we're just moving through Zoom, through time, and it doesn't seem to stop
Yeah.
because all social distancing, being crowded in one place, all of that is belongs to the past, and now we're a new frightening future. So, can you please talk a little bit, if you can, about how humanity should regain its individual independence from the internet and its influence? How do you think that
Sure.
one should go about it in a healthy
Mm-hmm.
way?
Sure. I think the first thing is to not write off the internet completely, but just kind of distance yourself from it, whether that is like spending less time online, less time on your phone. I think one thing for me that is really important is to try not to check my phone like first thing when I wake up, to try and give myself some time rather than be like straight away on your phone first thing in the morning. And the same at night. I think you really need to have that time away. Also, as something that has always bothered me and is something luckily that none of my friends really do, is whenever you're with someone in person, you shouldn't, unless it like if somebody phones you and it's important, pick it up, absolutely. But you shouldn't really be
Yeah. So we'll get back to you after these messages. Okay. I just
checking.
Yeah. We're back. We're back.
Okay. So yeah, I think you just need to kind of distance yourself from your screen and start seeing things through your own eyes. I think a lot of that actually comes down to, I mean, I think photography is an incredible art and an incredible tool. But I think as somebody who is not a photographer by trade, I try to kind of go about my day. And especially when you're traveling, it's very easy to get caught up in like wanting to share every moment of your life and of the space and what you're doing and the places you're seeing. And I think the beauty of something in person is not, unless you're very talented, is never really captured in the same way through a lens. And some people spend so much time looking through a lens in their lives in general that they're never actually living within that moment. They're almost living through a fourth wall because they're living through the screen to their own
Yes.
life.
Yes.
And it's very,
You
very
trans your
bizarre.
you transpose your life on the screen.
Hmm.
It is it is clinically insane, I think, in
Exactly.
some ways. Yeah.
I agree. I personally really love like film photography because I think you take the one shot. Did you get it? Did you not? You don't know, but it's done and then you move on. Like I would limit myself almost to one photograph. So then you can enjoy the moment that you're existing in. I think there is, of course, a space for digital photography, especially like for keeping memories. But I think if all you do is do that, you never live in the moment. I would also say it's just about kind of being out in the world more. Like you can leave your house without your phone. I know some people might not want to for safety reasons, but you could also leave and just turn off your internet and just have your phone like with you if you need it. But I think like for me, a massive thing, especially in lockdown that I reconnected with was just the nature that I'm surrounded by all the time. Even we're so lucky in Scotland that even in our cities, there's still quite a lot of nature and a lot of trees and a lot of beautiful things to see. And I think it's just about opening your eyes to the world that surrounds you and appreciating natural things rather than man-made things all the time. I think it's nice to go to a river and know, oh, this existed like before a human, rather than to go to a dam and be like,
Yeah.
oh, we made this. I think for me, it's just kind of about putting yourself out into the world without a digital thing and just detoxing. Sometimes I think, especially if you work online a lot, which of course many people have throughout this experience, and it's not something we're really in control of, but I think take the weekend off. Like, I don't know, just leave your phone in a drawer or go on a staycation where you have no access to internet.
Yeah.
And it forces you to have to recognize like the world that we live in and how many incredible things exist that you don't see through a screen and will never appreciate through a screen. So for me,
Yeah.
that's like things that I think are important.
Yeah, just one thing. I don't know if it has anything to do with this, but it's just an example. But in Judaism, we have the Sabbath,
Mhm.
and this is
Mhm.
a holy day. But what it is essentially, it is a detox, because
Mhm.
on the Sabbath you can't do anything. So it is conscriptive. All the
Yeah.
rules are conscriptive, and they are not descriptive. They are not they don't have a lot of you know like holes that you can
Mhm.
take to your advantage. So you have to follow the law, because there are there are 47 of those,
Yeah.
yeah, like a constitution. So I just wanted to bring it up as an example of some kind of a religious detoxing through the society. I'm just gonna keep talking until Kirsty gets back online, um, and I think we should talk about not only going
Yeah.
outdoors. Yeah, we're back.
Am I
We're
back?
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay.
By the way, so
Okay.
okay. Uh, mm-mm. So I think we should talk about not only going outside more and
Uh-huh.
being offline, because it is a very problematic thing. You pay a price for not being involved online,
Yeah.
unfortunately, in some senses, because people get hurt when you don't connect with them, and there
Mhm.
isn't any other way to reach them really in this
Mhm.
current world. After the internet, after the pandemic, after two world wars that completely decimated an entire continent, nobody wants
Mhm.
to nobody wants to know the truth. Nobody wants
Mhm.
to see the tragedy and the pain. Everybody wants the nice shiny image that Instagram
Yeah.
presents to them, and also Facebook and other social networks. And the social media starts to become reality, unfortunately. And it is
Mhm.
very, very, very problematic to the human psyche, I think, and
Mhm.
to us
Yeah.
as a society, because society is starting to perforate,
Mhm.
let's say, too much. Too
Yeah.
much. There are too many different ponds, shall we say, on the on Earth, and the Earth was one kind of a continent many
Mhm.
many years ago. It was a Pangea, and now it is very ironic that that Earth has split into different continents, and
Yeah.
peoples and social and cultures and religions are starting to dissipate one by
Yeah.
one. And the new religion is media. So,
Mhm.
what do you think about the arts being some sort of spiritual um, feeling for the the part that should have been taken on by people and not
Yeah.
social media? So,
I think that that's one of the great things about the arts is that it is something that kind of transcends often like space and it is something that connects people no matter where they come from or what they do or how they live. I think the arts has an incredible way. I mean, obviously, within written arts, you need to ensure like translation is it's not as simple, I suppose,
yeah, yeah.
to have it transcend nations because it will not always translate perfectly. Whereas I think that is one of the beauties of visual art, particularly, is the ability that everyone can kind of see a photograph and they can experience the same thing, but also similarly experience completely different emotions regarding it based on like their subjective life experience, but they're still having a moment together, which is quite spiritual, whether they are thinking the same things or not. They're still all looking at the same thing. And the same thing can, of course, be said for poetry and things. Like I said, the only thing is like sometimes the translation isn't great, but if you are all reading or listening to the same poem, you're all experiencing the same moment in like in a way that connects you all. And I think that's something that is like severely lacking a lot within society, particularly of course due to lockdown, because how do you have like the same experiences when you can't leave your house? Of course, we're all experiencing lockdown, but it's not the same as having like the same experience at the same time. So I think the arts is one of those incredible tools, especially like all types of arts. I don't think it is just stuck to one thing. Like you can have music as an incredible art, dance, like painting, but also like visual, like sculptures and more physical art, like drama and stuff. I think everyone can kind of find, you will struggle in the world to find somebody who hates the arts like as a whole. Maybe they don't like one part of it,
I know
which
some
is
people
fair
like this,
enough. Oh really?
unfortunately. Yeah, there
I
are
think like
people.
it's I think it's quite uncommon though to hate the arts as an entirety. I think like it's more likely you dislike maybe a particular author or a particular book, or you're not big on reading, but there's so many other options within the arts. And I sometimes think though that a hatred towards the arts is it's more of like a kind of standing out from the crowd thing rather than like an actual thing. Like I think it's more like they've decided that's like part of their personality rather than it actually being something they just haven't taken the time
I just
to
want,
find.
sorry to
No, you're fine.
interrupt you. I just want a small caveat. There is something to say about people in art, because
Uh-huh.
generally people tend to be attracted to things that are popular. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a very difficult question to say whether you're attracted to the art because of the art itself and what it does
Mm-hmm.
and what it renews and what it conserves in the
Yeah.
history and the tradition of art, um, or you're just interested because there is a large crowd that is already interested.
Yeah.
So it is
That's true.
it's a very very difficult question, one that I cannot answer,
Yeah. I
unfortunately.
think that is sometimes the beauty though of finding a new emerging artist that you fall in love with. I think that is nice to kind of have that moment of being like, wow, this is incredible. And I know that I must like this because I don't know anyone that's seen it before. Whereas, like, if you go to, I think a lot of things kind of unfortunately come into that thing where it's almost like overhyped, is what people say. And
Yes.
it's like it's been overplayed, but it's hard because that's that person's experience. And if multiple people are experiencing something, and it could just be the day that they go on or the atmosphere surrounding, like for instance, like the Mona Lisa, maybe it's just the fact that so many people are there and so many people are looking at the same thing and they think it's so amazing that they're all experiencing this. So they do kind of rave about it.
Yeah.
That maybe you go and you don't get such a good day at
Yeah.
the gallery and you think, wow, that's kind of small for a
Yeah,
painting. Like,
just to put things in perspective, the Mona Lisa for everyone listening is
yeah.
this
Yeah.
size, to put it in perspective. So,
Yeah, so I think it's easy to kind of be taken on, I suppose, by the media perspective of it. And that's kind of the thing. Like it's kind of nice to go, that's what I mean when it's nice to go to a piece of art that you haven't heard about and hasn't necessarily made it yet. And the same with music. There is something nice about knowing that this is kind of untouched so far. And it hasn't been put into the digital space, because once it's in the digital space, it's readily accessible. And when it becomes popular, there's probably about 55 articles on it, all with differing opinions. And it's impossible not to be impacted by what you see and what you read. We're humans, and that's how our nature works. It's how it'll always work. No human will ever be unbiased. It's not possible for us to be unbiased creatures, which, because I always hate when people say, oh, we need like an unbiased referee or something. Like they're
yeah,
like, yes, they're less biased than someone else, but
that's a bowl of BS, shall we say?
yeah,
Yes.
like they may be less biased than someone else, but they will never be fully unbiased. It's not possible within human nature. So I do think it is a hard one. Like I think but I do think art does have a way of transcending itself and just connecting people
Yeah.
in a way that wouldn't necessarily connect otherwise. Like meeting people at galleries that perhaps you would never talk to on the street it's a cool way
Yeah.
to get to know like-minded people where maybe you wouldn't consider them someone that you would talk to necessarily if you were in class together. So I think
Yes.
it's a nice way to connect.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, thank you for sharing your
No, of course.
opinion and constructing such a nice logical thinking and expressing it beautifully. I think that art should do two things. I think
Mm-hmm.
the artist should, when it in terms of the crowd, the people, the consumers, shall we say, the art should strive to excite people
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, at the millisecond they encounter it.
Yeah.
The other thing that art should strive to do, the artist should strive to do with his art, is
Mm-hmm.
to break down the boundaries and the suspicions and the stigmatization that people bring with them to
Mm-hmm.
when they look at the art. He should be
Mm.
more accessible. It should be you should be transposed inside of the
Mm-hmm.
work of art. You should see yourself as a part of it, and
Yeah.
someone that and the art is someone that the art speaks directly to, and not some kind of observer from the sides, shall we say. Um, so I think it's a good point to stop here and hear
Mm-hmm.
one of your poems. If
Sure. I
I
actually have a poem that kind of fits the topic quite well from Turbulent 20s. So I wrote this poem called Vicarious Living, and I think
mm,
it kind of speaks for itself. I wrote it during one of the three, I think, so far lockdowns that's happened here in Scotland. So I'll just read it. And I should have
yeah,
mentioned it was originally published in Delicate Rebellion, issue number
mm,
3, which is a magazine here in Edinburgh. So
mm, nice.
Vicarious Living. 65 minutes, 3,900 seconds, scrolling, switching, surfing, watching snapshots to ignore thoughts until all you see are dots. 128 minutes, 7,680 seconds, staring, staying, sitting, fleeting, fraying, fitting. 1,247 minutes, 74,820 seconds. Groundhog Day. Which character shall I portray? A vicarious life on display. So yeah, that's
Yes.
the poem. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. As the phonetic tonality all lined up, and
Yeah.
you like the tongue twisters very, very
Yeah.
much.
I do.
So
I enjoy.
I think I enjoyed it so much. Our little talk about mental health, poetry, and the new new regime that is called Google, Amazon, and Apple, and others. Yeah, other great, I don't know, our great leaders, shall we say. Um, and I think we have a great we have an open door to many, many discussions, I think,
Yeah, for sure.
further on. So I
Yeah,
want to thank you
definitely.
so much, Kirsty, for being on my show. And I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.